So talking about Saturn no longer retrograde and about to start moving direct in Sagittarius. So we'll be committing to what inspires us moving forward. Saturn's also very close to Ketu. We'll be talking about that in this video. So finally, after months, Saturn will stop going retrograde in Sagittarius. He's been retrograde in Sagittarius and very close to Ketu, the South Node, since back in the spring. And on September 18th, I believe is the exact date, he will stop his retrograde motion and actually station, which means he will kind of stop in the sky and then start to move forward at his regular pace about, 3 weeks to a month later. But we're at a very pivotal point. Saturn and Ketu have been knotted up at this same degree for a couple months at this point, approximately. They will be at that same degree, around 20 degrees of Sagittarius, for a while longer, but we're seeing a shift and a sort of concentration of energy first, before Saturn starts to actually move forward. So, this has been a long-term trend, actually, the Saturn in Sagittarius, which started in early 2017, actually started right after the US election. Saturn has been going back and forth, mostly in Sagittarius since that time. Now, he's about to start moving forward again, and then he'll finish the transit through Sagittarius by early 2020. So we're in a kind of finishing phase, a sort of culminating phase of this Saturn through Sagittarius that's been upon us, again, since right after like the election of Trump here in the US, and how that's really changed the world all around the world. We have other events such as the Brexit. We have all kinds of political instability and chaos around the world, especially with monetary systems, with countries such as what's happening in the Middle East with Saudi Arabia and Iran, all kinds of climate issues, just all kinds of stuff going on. And so again, we can mark this last 2.5 years or so, since Saturn has been in Sidereal Sagittarius, as sort of getting ready to culminate and move forward. And notice how much your worldview has shifted and changed during that time, since that time. So it's really a time for us to really focus on what inspires us, to really commit to what we want to see as the next phase, the next cycle of inspiration for this world that we inhabit. And this is very much about the Saturn and Sagittarius cycle. Sagittarius is about hope, inspiration, purpose. Saturn is about focus, commitment, not just taking things for granted or expecting somehow it's all going to work out. It doesn't all work out. We have to focus our energy, concentrate our energy, and it might work out then. So this need to concentrate and focus our energy on what's meaningful and important comes from Saturn. And so, again, as I've been saying the entire time, that we need to really focus on what inspires us, and this is what we're all doing now. As I said, when Saturn and Ketu joined in Sagittarius, that we're going to see how we're either going to be focusing and concentrating on things that we're afraid of, like our fears, or our hopes. And in a lot of ways, there's sort of a mixture of the two. When you bring Ketu into the equation, Ketu in Sagittarius, it's really quite a powerful place for it, because Ketu really drills into the, any sort of issue. And when Ketu's in Sagittarius, we're really purifying our beliefs. Of course, that's opposite Rahu in Gemini, which is about finding new ways of explaining things and understanding things. Opposite that is Ketu in Sagittarius, which is destroying our beliefs about things. Again, the problem of Sagittarius is a sort of blind faith. And Ketu in Sagittarius is there to sort of destroy and sort of drill holes in our blind faith and the things that we just take on faith and that we just sort of believe. Ketu is saying you shouldn't just believe. You need to show up with the receipts. You need to purify your beliefs into things that are beyond just this world, or that are beyond just, saying, trust me, I got your best interests in mind. No. What Ketu does is show this kind of disgust and this kind of revulsion toward that area of life. And then Rahu in Gemini in the opposite end of the nodal axis says, yes, because you can't just believe things blindly. You need to figure things out for yourself. You need to look into the facts, right? And so this is what's been happening. This has been the dynamic since the end of March. Since March 23rd or so, we've had that dynamic with Rahu in Gemini, Ketu in Sagittarius, and shortly thereafter, when Ketu went into Sagittarius, it was very closely joined Saturn, and then Saturn and Ketu have been tracking next to each other since like early mid-April. And so we're right in this now with that conjunction again, very tight, very close, and then Saturn station, and then about to move forward. So the next few weeks to a month or so, there's going to be a big shift, and we need to be very careful. It's, of course, a dangerous time. We look around the world financially, monetarily, things like, for example, it has to do with war and other things. There's a lot of dangers in the world. In your life, I hope you've found some things to really focus and to really commit to that inspire you, because that's really a lot of what is up now for the next, several months to a year, as Saturn moves forward and leaves Sagittarius. What's going to happen at the end of the year in November, Jupiter is going to go into Sagittarius. It's going to be joined to Ketu, and then Jupiter is going to be back and forth in Sagittarius for pretty much, most or all of 2020. Of course, Jupiter in Sagittarius is very powerful because Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. And, Ketu will, the nodes will be in this axis for most of 2020 as well. But they're changing around the end of the year. But again, there's a lot of hope and inspiration and purpose that's on the way. Even though there's a lot of intensity right now, a lot of tangled up energy, regardless of where you are on your social, political beliefs or whatnot. On a personal level, it's very much a time to follow what inspires you, and not just with lip service, but with your actions. Saturn is about our commitment, our focus, not just our words, not just our airy-fairy beliefs, but what are we following up on? What are we committed to? That's what Saturn is about. So that commitment to something bigger, something better, something more inspiring is what's happening now. And we're feeling that shift. And the shift from this sort of, I'm not sure, even though I'm inspired by this thing, but I'm not sure how to move forward with it. That's kind of the way Saturn has been in Sagittarius. That kind of, I'm inspired, but I don't really know how to move forward with it. It shows up with me. I see a lot of that with a kind of self-doubt, with clients and people who, maybe they want to do something, but they doubt that they can actually do it. So it can really show up in that self-doubt. It can show up in that, that things that aren't practical. They're kind of, well, it inspires me, but I can't do that like for a living, or I can't have that sort of thing, or we can't make that, we can't, have that big thing. Well, maybe you can. People who do have those amazing things in their life have them because they're inspired and they follow their inspirations and they commit to it and they focus on it. So these are things that you should be aware of. And again, Ketu's focus there is quite inspirational and spiritual as well. Ketu in Sagittarius has a lot of, it's like, Ketu is kind of like it's sort of like a drill bit. It like drills down into the depths of things. And so with Ketu there in Sagittarius, it's really sort of drilling down into our false beliefs, false hopes. And hopefully we can see through some of our blindness And again, it's even said that Ketu is blind. Ketu is blind because it can be quite fanatical. So it can be sort of a sort of double blindness if we're not careful. And we're seeing a lot of people doubling down on their blindness as well. Think politically and things like that. But it's also a great opportunity for us to see the truth and really learn the lesson and really get the message of what is happening in our world and in our life, and be honest with ourselves, introspect about how we're walking the talk or not walking the talk. Saturn in Sagittarius is very good for putting into practice what inspires you, as I've said, but think of what that means. Think of what that means. These are just words, but what are the actions with those words? Well, the actions are things like being able to do things that are hard, not just things that make you feel good in the moment. We all, everybody says they want to do what's right or they know what's right. Okay, knowing what's right in your head is different than doing it. Knowing what's right in your head is almost irrelevant to your growth or your life improving. Right? Like you can know that it's right to eat the right amount of food and exercise and do this and do that. You can know it's right and then never do it. And be, 50 pounds overweight with with like terrible health and all that. So knowing what's right or being inspired, oh, this is so inspiring, and then I never do it. I never put any of it into practice. I just believe in it. Again, how many people are spiritual, quote, which is actually usually religious. They believe something and call it spiritual, but they believe something and then they never practice what the spiritual practice is telling you to do. They never do it. I mean, even in a mundane sense, good Christian. We see the hypocrisy everywhere. We see it in politics like crazy. There was a thing this weekend, Gods and Guns rally. I mean, it's stunning that people would think that God would want us all to have guns and shoot each other. Now, and there's going to be people hearing me say that in this video that are going to dump all over me because, how dare you say God doesn't want us guns? Here you are getting political or whatever. It's just like, you just can't imagine these kinds of things come together. Not practicing at all what we preach or what we believe, and the ego will find some way to justify it, because that's what the ego does. The ego can justify anything. Oh, well, it's because of my childhood, or it's because of this, or it's because of that, or I'm just not that way, or blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's fine. I'm no one's judge. The judge is time itself. The judge is your life. The judge is the results of what's coming back. And again, it's not a judge. It's called karma. It's the law. There's no reason for anybody to judge anything else. Karma is the great judge and jury and matrix. Anything that you're unhappy with, or that you are, that you want to be different, you have to change it. You have to change your actions. That's all. Again, it's very simple and beautiful and liberating. The law of karma is the most liberating structure ever because it shows that you're totally responsible. I like to say it's all your fault. I used to have an email, when I would send out an email that would say it's all your fault. That was the header. So people get mad at me. Why are you saying it's all my fault? Well, because it is. Your life is all your fault and your glory. So they say, that one of the biggest mistakes we make is we want to take credit for all of our glory, and we want to blame God for all the problems. All the problems in my life. Oh, God, come on, help me. What did I do? It's God's fault. It's God's fault that things are bad. Oh, all that great stuff. Oh, yeah, that was me. I did that. I did all that great stuff. All the bad stuff is just unfair punishment. My karma is supposed to be flipped. All the great stuff is God's grace flowing into our life. All the terrible stuff that gets screwed up endlessly, that's actually our ego messing things up. Flip the switch and invite more grace into your life, especially putting into practice what inspires you, what you actually have been blessed to learn from great teachers, and make a commitment to that and see how that works out.